Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, I have Rick Green, founder of PatriotAcademy.com, radio host, author, national speaker, and former Texas State representative. My, are you an accomplished guy? How are you, Rick? Welcome.
Hey, Dr. Richey, pleasure to be with you, man. I'm honored to be on your show. I appreciate you being a lover of truth and free speech and fighting for those things and what you believe in. Not many people out there have civil discourse like you have on your program. I wish we had more people doing that. So just want you to know I appreciate your style and what you do. I think you either have civil discourse or civil war. So you're a patriot in my book. You're trying to save the nation through civil discourse. Thanks for seeking truth and giving me a chance to be a part of the program and say what I believe, hear what you believe, and have some intellectual curiosity back and forth. Appreciate it, man.
Well, brother, I appreciate that sentiment. I hope you feel the same by the end of this conversation, okay?
Yeah, that might be the last nice thing I say today. We'll see.
Right. Let me ask you, man, I don't want to presume what you know or believe about freedom of speech, Second Amendment rights, et cetera. So give us some of your thoughts, your sentiment as it relates to those items.
To have a free society, you have to have both of those things. The founding fathers called the right to keep and bear arms the first law of nature, the palladium of all of our other liberties. So you've got to have that in order to have free speech. And then, of course, free speech itself, like I said, without civil discourse, man, we become more splintered. We start hating on each other. We start looking for violent ways to settle our disputes. I think free speech is essential to a society like ours. I'm not saying this to just be nice. I think we need more shows like yours so that people from very different persuasions, we may not agree on anything. We're going to find out today if we agree on anything. But to be able to have this civil discourse, I think it's a shame right now that we've shut that down in our nation in so many ways and prevented it. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to discuss it. But I think those are inherent natural rights that God gave to every single one of us, and government's job is to protect them.
So let's talk about, let me first start with freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
Because when we talk about the constitutional freedom that government should protect, we're really talking about an opportunity to exercise a right and the government not infringing upon that right. But I think some people conflate your freedom of speech with the freedom to say whatever you want to say, however you want to say it in any forum. That's not the same, right? So let me give you an example.
I agree with that.
There's a class action lawsuit right now, and I know you're familiar. It's being launched by Donald Trump. He knows it's a fool's errand. The attorneys who filed it, they know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm in my second year in law school. I know that it's a fool's errand, right? But they're claiming that social media, these big social media companies, have infringed on their constitutional right, freedom of speech. Well, that's not what the Constitution says. Do you agree with me that this Donald Trump lawsuit that says this is a violation of my freedom of speech for me not to be able to post on Twitter? Don't you think, one, that's misguided based on what the Constitution says, and two, it erodes at the legitimate claims when the government does infringe on constitutional liberties?
Yeah, I think first of all, the principle is that the Constitution is there to protect you from the government, not from a private actor. You don't have to have me on your program, so I can't call you up and say, hey, my constitutional free speech right says you have to give me time on your program, on your platform. If I'm holding a big seminar or an event, no one can force their way on stage to get to exercise their free speech. Those are all our decisions because we created that platform. I think there's a difference with some of these social media giants that have been given government protections, and government is colluding with some of these social media giants, telling them what speech to shut down, what speech to allow. So at that point, it becomes a government actor, and they're sort of like the brown shirts enforcing government's will in that place, in that particular instance. And in this instance, actually shutting down anyone that has a narrative that doesn't fit with the government narrative. We've seen it with the COVID fascism across the country, preventing people from even being able to talk about proven cures and treatments that work with COVID. That's bad for the country. It's bad for science. It's bad for
Come
freedom.
on now, Rick.
Yeah.
Rick, let's bring this thing back. Let's bring it back, brother. When you say that these companies are being controlled by the government as far as what regulation happens.
Well, not controlled. I said in collusion with.
Well, where's your proof that they are doing this in order to restrict speech?
Well, Jen Psaki admitted it. Joe Biden has admitted it. They've actually said, we're telling them with the types of things we want shut down. So I mean, they've admitted it. I've been a victim of it. I've seen
Tell me how you were a victim. Explain it.
Well, they prevented me from even talking about scientific studies, from being able to have doctors
now, who are they,
in
brother?
the field. In this case, it was Facebook. So Facebook decided.
Is Facebook the government?
Facebook is not the government, but it is an actor for the government if government is telling them to do something. And also you have the other issue of government protecting Facebook. So once if you're out there totally private, absolutely, I agree. You should be able to hire.
It doesn't work that way, Rick.
You ought to be able to, not allow speech on your platform if you want. But if government is giving you special protection based on your promise to be neutral,
it doesn't work that way, brother.
And to let me speak or you speak, and then you turn around and stop your speech because they don't like what you're saying, now you've created a real problem.
Let me tell you, brother, it doesn't work that way. Now I'm going to read what the Constitution says because it's not statutory. It's actually codified in the Constitution through a congressional restriction, okay? The Constitution says Congress shall make no law. Let me repeat that. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, abridging the freedom of speech or press, et cetera, or the right of the people to protest and assemble peaceably, right?
Right.
Okay, so very clear, there's a very clear directive here from the Constitution. The United States Congress cannot statutorily pass a law to infringe on your freedom of speech. However, we already have statutory common sense restrictions on speech. They have existed for a long time. Sure. If you curse in front of children, there are some states that have state laws saying, well, that's child abuse. Even though I disagree with that law, that is statutory in many states, including there's a version of that in Texas as well, in your state. If you play loud music, you have a noise issue, right? Even though music has been ruled as a First Amendment protection, if you play it too loud, it's a nuisance, it's an issue, right?
Right.
And you also have the regulation of speech that may harm other people. You cannot yell fire in a crowded building. There's no fire, people get hurt. You can be charged and arrested and convicted. So yeah, you definitely have these particular rights. That's why we can engage. But you don't think it becomes messy when you say something like, well, Facebook has government protections. Well, everybody, companies have government protections all across the board. There is no company that exists in the United States of America, Rick, without a certain level of government protection. You know why? Because the prerequisite to be a company is you have to be recognized by a government agency in order to operate.
Well, in some cases, sure, and I'm not suggesting that you don't have government protections for other people, but this is a specific protection for free speech. In other words, it's a protection to say we're going to protect you from being sued. So you get immunity. They can't sue you for things that are said on your platform if you are neutral. So it's basically a deal with the devil, right? So they're going to do business with the government and say protect us from lawsuits, and we will let everybody say whatever they want. And then they turn around and shut you down because they say, hey, Dr. Richey's saying stuff we don't agree with or we think is dangerous. And you got some 23-year-old, content, reviewer at Facebook deciding that what you're saying shouldn't be allowed in polite society. That's a real problem whenever you're using that protection the government's giving you to now silence people. Plus, it's a utility issue too. They've become essentially the public utilities for discussion.
Yeah, but they're not. And I know they're powerful and they're strong, and I don't agree with everybody they censor. I don't agree that everybody they have censored should have been censored. But I also know constitutionally that is not the government or Congress passing a law to abridge or infringe on your protected speech, right? It's a private entity. And it's interesting to me because typically you guys have always been on the side, and I mean conservatives when I say you guys, you have always been on the side of private companies being able to regulate their consumer interaction and allowing the consumer to judge the company. You also are typically for deregulation of companies. You don't want to see private companies having more regulatory standards, but that's what lawsuits do, or that's what this lawsuit aims to do, is to create a government regulation of private companies. So explain this to me. How are you on a platform and promote a platform that's antithetical to government regulation while supporting a lawsuit that's begging for the government to regulate private companies?
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% intellectually honest and consistent to say the government should not be involved in what's happening between private businesses and the consumer. But if government does get involved and interject itself between that private business and the consumer, then certain other regulations are going to apply. And that's what is happening here. I'm all for social media giants having absolutely no regulation on them and the government not getting involved if they give up the protection. If Section 230 goes away, then we have no case. We have no argument. Donald Trump has no argument to say that you're treating me different than you're treating the other consumers, and you're using your government protection to do that.
Now,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Why do you think that Donald Trump is actually being treated differently than others? Explain that to me.
Sure, I mean, we're silencing him, removing him from Twitter for stating
because he violated their community standards and rules.
Yeah, so what are those community standards and rules?
Whatever
they allow violent people, they allow all kinds of nasty things on Twitter, and yet they're gonna stop the president of the United States from giving his, I think, well-reasoned and backed up by data opinions in most cases. Now, granted, he does go off on some things, but listen, you're gonna silence the president of the United States?
He's not the president,
not silence
brother.
People that are involved in terrorism and all these other things? I mean, it's a double standard. You don't think it's a double standard? Seriously?
Rick, listen to yourself. First of all, you do know he's no longer the president, right?
Well, at the time they banned him, he was. And even if you just say former, I would argue that former president, I wouldn't want Barack Obama silenced. I wouldn't want Barack Obama silenced. He's an important voice in the culture for the left.
When Trump was banned, he was banned because of his violation of community standards. The truth is, brother, he should have been banned while he was president if you looked at it moment by moment, item by item. But he was not. They waited till the end of the presidency and then they decided to ban the guy. But let's be very clear.
What was the community standard that he violated?
Inciting violence.
Inciting violence.
Let me finish. Retweeting information that could become riotous, and also racism or retweeting racist tweets that he was warned on and did not stop. So these things were aggregating over time, and he should have.
So have they done the same thing to other members of the community that incited violence during riots last summer, for instance, or encouraged people to take to the streets? Did they?
They have. They did. They actually kicked off over 1 million individuals or gave them penalty for doing the same thing. Yes.
Okay, people that like Kamala Harris that encouraged people to take to the streets and bailed out people that were involved in violent riots, not peaceful riots.
All right, so let's okay.
I don't remember that.
Give me a second, brother, because you're shoveling a lot of bull-ish on the show. So let me try to get through some of it.
Facts are facts.
Okay. One, when you look at the Twitter platform or any of these other platforms, and you say, "Oh my gosh, they're singling out Donald Trump."
Well, they singled out me, so it's. I don't want to defend Donald Trump. I'll defend myself.
Allow me to finish.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And you all say this is a big conspiracy against those that are conservatives. That's really the genesis of the lawsuit. The class action part, the class action element is about conservative content, right?
I haven't looked at his lawsuit, but I know from personal experience that most of the people that are being banned or silenced are on the conservative side of the aisle.
Okay, that's because y'all don't know how to behave. And so, let me, but it's interesting because you all are the same guys.
What have I done that didn't behave correctly by sharing scientific
You all are the
studies?
same guys. Let me make this point, man, because I find it really fascinating. You all are the same people that will tell, let's say, a black citizen gets pulled over, right? And they're not immediately compliant, right? And you all would say, people on your side of the aisle will say, all they have to do is comply, follow the rules, and this would not have happened to them. And then you all openly and actively violate every rule in front of you, and rules that are set by private companies that you all supported that can set rules. You said these companies can do this, and then as soon as they start enforcing the rules, as soon as they say, this is a standard and you're violating this standard, now you want the federal government or federal judges to regulate those companies. And remember, brother, if this is about conservative ideology and conservative content, you explain this to me. Why is it that Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, why are they still on all of these platforms? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, why are they still there if this is only about silencing conservative voices?
Well, you conflated a lot of issues there, but I'll take the last one that you mentioned. Candace Owens has been banned at times. There have been some of the big names.
She's still active,
and she had to file suit to get back on some of those platforms. So
she filed an appeal.
And most of the time they pick on the smaller folks like me, right? That don't have the same resources, the same large platform in other areas, and that's usually the people they're shutting down. But hey, look, at least we can agree that we want free speech. We want people to be able to say what they believe, right? Let the marketplace decide if I'm crazy or you're crazy. Let us say what we believe.
But that's not what you're proposing, Rick. You're proposing a government solution. Remember, the private companies have.
No, I'm proposing get the government out of it. I'm proposing get rid of Section 230, no government protections for these private entities. Well, let them live or die on their private market choices. Yeah.
Okay, Rick, Section 230 deals with a public policy issue as it relates to the responsibility and liability of these particular companies, right, in relationship to defamation.
Right, that's what I was explaining earlier. If you get that protection that says nobody can sue me because I let somebody say something on the platform, you now have a responsibility. That's
not the fullness of the element. The element that you're talking about says because of public policy and these free flowing ideas, we're going to have to treat social media like, let's say, a venue, okay, where people get to congregate and they can talk about what they want to talk about. It's like the town square, but the town square can be regulated. The town square can have rules. The town square can have regulation and enforcement of that regulation. So the court said, we have to now look at social media as a de facto town square. Now, do you in every circumstance want to sue the person who's in the town square or controlling the town square, or are you going to allow free flowing ideas with a regulatory standard and not open for everybody to sue you because one person says something about another? You're still able to sue the person. If somebody defames you, you can file a tort against that person. It's about a public policy. Public policy has been here for a long time as it relates to other forums and events. If I went to, let's say you go to church, right?
Absolutely.
If I went to your church, brother, on a Sunday morning and I said something defamatory about you, I defamed you, right? Mm-hmm. I said, hey, this guy did A, B, and C to me, and it was a lie. But you can't sue your church. You cannot sue your pastor for that. You cannot sue the deacon board. You can only sue me. And that was the logic of the court. Why do you disagree with that logic?
Well, again, because you're shutting down the speech before it even happens. You're not even giving people the opportunity.
No, you shut it down after it happens. That's opposite of what we're talking about. You're literally talking about somebody saying something and then, Rick, being shut down on a private platform because of the reaction based on the standard of the community.
It's no different. I mean, it's actually a good comparison. It's no different than preventing someone from having an event in the public square and being able to have free speech at that event, even before they've had the chance to express themselves. I mean, it's the whole reason that MLK called the prevention of the marches in Birmingham an unjust law, because you're not giving people the chance to come out and speak and say what they believe.
There you go, Rick, trying to evoke the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I'm not allowed to do that. I mean, he's one of the greatest heroes in American history. Why am I not allowed to use MLK?
Not for a lie, brother. Hell to the no. So let me correct that for you.
Yeah, give me the lie.
The laws that Dr. King was talking about were based on racist application.
That's right.
Where they would file all of the proper paperwork in order to have a regulated march in that particular city. Exactly. Well, they would deny based on the grounds of racism, okay?
Exactly.
I agree with that. That is not comparable, brother, to a legal finding, to a court ruling that says social media is like a venue. And when something happens in a venue construct, meaning a person says something bad about you, or a person says something that the venue disagrees should be part of the community, then the company is not in violation of your freedom because it's not the government. And the company has a good faith obligation to do proper regulation of what's being shared. And you can't sue the company just because somebody did it on their platform, just like you could not sue your pastor if I walked into your church on Sunday and started to defame you.
So let me go back to the comparison. So it's the same outcome whether you prevent the speech because of the race of the person or the belief of the person. So the racist Democrats, as they've always done, the racist Democrats in the South were preventing black individuals from being able to express their beliefs in those examples. That's the racist Democrat way. That's why we've had white-only primaries by the Democrats, and all the Jim Crow laws were racist Democrats. I mean, that's the history of the party.
Yeah, there were plenty of racist Democrats. There are a whole bunch of racist Democrats today. But I guarantee you this, brother, and I just ask you, members of the KKK today, how many of them do you think are Republicans?
I don't even know if there are any members of the KKK.
Come on, man. Anymore. Come on, brother.
The KKK, since you brought it up, though, this is important.
100%.
This is very,
Let me give
very
you the number.
important.
100%.
The KKK is in the congressional records as an arm of the Democrat Party. That's what it was created for. Why? To harass black and white Republicans. Of the roughly 48
lynchings in the South,
1,200 of them were whites. Why? Because they were Republicans.
Respond to that before the time is up. The reason why you say what you just said, the reason why you said it is because you sit in a seat of privilege, okay? I don't give a damn as a black man what political ideology those racist SOBs prescribe to or subscribe to back 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. You can sit where you're at and make it a partisan argument. I don't give a damn about that party affiliation. Racism is racism, period. And the point about Dr. King that you missed is that it was actually the government discriminating against Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it was not a private company in that situation. But brother, all of it is based on racism in the 60s, not comparable to what you're trying to do today through social media.
The principle of preventing speech because you disagree with someone, because you hate them for whatever reason.
Brother,
you can hate them.
You don't get to say whatever you want to say in a private establishment without enforcement, common sense enforcement. Come on, man.
I missed that. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
You don't get to say whatever you want to say in an establishment that you don't own because you feel like saying it, brother. You don't get to do that. You can't walk on Facebook and call me the N-word just because you wanted to and think you should stay on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
All right, thank you. You made my point. All right, I gotta go, brother. Producer's telling me to wrap it up. I appreciate you being on the show.
Enjoyed being with you, Dr. Richey. God bless you. Have a good one.
We'll bring you back, brother.